What's going on? You're watching Eats, Beats, and Rhymes. I'm your host, Yo Jules DJ. Welcome back to another episode of Who Do You Got? We got the guys in the room once again. All the EPR guys, make some noise.
Yeah.
What up?
So we take two of your favorite hip hop giants or records or personalities or whatever, put them in a round for round kind of basis to answer the overall question, who do you got? Going around the room real quick. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the subject matter tonight. Tonight's subject matter is a little controversial. We're talking about the same artist for both topics. We decided to take a look into the NAS catalog. We're talking about two albums tonight. We're talking about two legendary joints right here.
Ooh, look at that.
Ooh,
Illmatic.
put out the vinyl. Ooh. Looks clean.
Versus
Okay.
there's a lot of controversy online, at least about this. A lot of hip hop forums discussing it. Again, we know what this brought to the table, but a lot of people are quietly saying this is actually a little better than this. And
That's what I heard today.
Start going around the room real quick. Follow us. We do this every Monday night live on Twitch, Eats, Beats, and Rhymes. Again, follow us every Monday night, 8 p.m. on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitch. Going around the room first, we're going to start out down in Virginia. My man, DJ Hobo, what's going on, sir? How are you tonight?
What's up? Shout out to my Wahoos going to the College World Series.
All right. Hobo, real quick off the bat, you heard we're going to get deep into it, but off the bat, out to those guys, who are you talking about? Who do you got?
Man, this is really difficult because I am a very big fan.
Nope.
I just got to choose off rip.
Later, you can defend later which ones, you know what I'm saying? But right now, give me your answer.
I'm going to go, it was written.
Fair enough. Again, a lot of people say that as well. Okay. We have DJ Hobo putting it down for It Was Written. Going across, up the map a little bit. We're going to start out with my man DJ Scandalous, DJ Scantastic. Baba Midi, how are you, sir? How you doing tonight?
Peace. Claro que yes. What's going on, man?
Chilling, man. How you doing, man? Everything good?
All right. What's good?
The question, let's not hold back. Let's get right into it.
Oh, man.
Who do you got?
Man, I'm gonna be. I want to say It Was Written, but I'm gonna go with Illmatic just for nostalgia.
Yeah,
just for nostalgia. We can get into it.
Nobody is questioning why you did that or what strategy you come up with tonight. It's automatic. We understand what it is. Keeping it Queens, my man Triple C in the building. What's
up?
Again, we're keeping it Queens. We're talking about a Queens legend. You know what's going on. Illmatic versus It Was Written. Who do you got?
I'm going with the Genesis.
Going with the Genesis.
Illmatic.
I already knew it. I knew it. Okay. Keeping it Queens still, but moving over to the left coast, what some would call the best coast. I don't know. We'll see. But keeping it East Coast tonight, my man Cool Breeze. You heard the subject matter. You know who we're talking about. You know which albums we're talking about. Who do you got, bro?
I'm gonna go with Illmatic.
Illmatic. There you go. So it's not that split down that evenly down the line tonight. We're looking at sort of a leaning more on the Illmatic side than it was written. But in I don't know, I'm not gonna say in its defense, but long story short, I mean, the reason we kind of picked this topic tonight is because there's a big debate. There's discussions on the internet.
Yeah.
About this particular subject matter and how some people feel as strongly as they do about Illmatic and why they also feel as strongly as they do about It Was Written. Only because we're gonna start out. We're gonna dive right into it again. Eats, Beats, and Rhymes. Who do you got? It Was Written versus Illmatic. That's what we're talking about tonight, which was the better overall album. Again, totally debatable, but only because just based on the amount of people that picked Illmatic tonight. Let's start with DJ Hobo. Hobo, what made you pick It Was Written? Just based on the fact that again you're kind of alone in this particular room.
Man, I feel like as good as Illmatic was, as good as it was, is. I just feel like It Was Written. I feel like it changed the way people started rhyming, for better or for worse.
Okay.
But I feel like it changed the way people started rhyming. I feel like there was a little more of the glamorized mafioso type gangsterism after It Was Written.
Okay.
Like it was before it was gritty, right? Tim 40 Belows and Tims and Carhartts. But then I feel like after it was written, it became a little more Bob Ross-ish with the glamorization of the violence, the gun bars, if you will.
Right.
Right. We're very familiar with the gun bars. Well, I mean, that's why I wanted to have you, sort of first. Again, the discussion out there is, the Illmatic versus it was written sort of controversy, if you will. But we can dive into the automatics of why we think Illmatic, sort of holds that weight and that crown, for example, in this room tonight. But let's just get the opinion of somebody in the room. Excuse me, Triple C. Why do you feel that why were you so quick as usual with a quick answer? Why did you feel so quick to Illmatic out there?
Illmatic was history. You just had good memories of it.
Okay.
Good memories blasting it.
So you didn't have good memories. So life wasn't as popping during it was written. So
no, I'm saying. Let's
talk about the years for a second. We're talking about spring of '94.
That was Edison days.
For Illmatic.
Edison days, yeah.
And you're talking about the summer of '96 for it was written.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of stuff happened in '96 in terms of albums as well.
Indeed.
So we know the nostalgia Illmatic has. I feel you, Triple C. I mean, it's history for everybody, I think, in the room. Especially if you were able to live through that era, right? Because you could be a youngster today and still be a huge fan of Illmatic and weren't even alive during it, right? But back to what Hobo said, you have a situation here where you have a young kid, right? You have a kid who at the time, if it was written drops, is 23 years old, which means he's recording about maybe 21, 22 years old at this point, prepping for the second album. And he hits a classic, instant classic off the bat with Illmatic, right? How do I duplicate this gem, right? What do I do to top what has today become, a definite chapter of the hip hop books and archives, right? Illmatic. That's a whole chapter. What does he do? What does any 21, 22-year-old do at that point, right? Oh, you were broke your whole life. The first album is about, you're still living at home. You're still broke. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Illmatic is that striving to get somewhere, whereas it was written, things are a little bit better now. They're getting better, right?
Yeah, when you broke, the music sound better.
Okay.
The music sound. You said it. Hobo said it. He said, when he came into it was written, everything's getting fancier. So
well, there you go. That's where I'm going with it. So you have a 21, 22, 23-year-old who's now a millionaire.
Yeah.
And
went from chicken and 40s to chicken and champagne.
Well, there you go. But it was also
always chicken though.
It was always, I think it was also good timing. I think let's not forget this is still a Puff Daddy era at the same time going on in the background. Sure. And there was the divide that was slowly becoming sort of apparent in hip hop at that point of like, you either like that or this in hip hop. Again, the divide that they made. We don't know who they are, but they made this divide, right? People could balance that act. Biggie was good at balancing that act, down to the singles, Juicy and Unbelievable. Like people were good. Nas didn't get to do that. Nas off the bat gave us more Unbelievable, but his versions of Unbelievable, right? And just in metaphor sense, was huge. Again, in a hindsight, because we got to remember, Illmatic didn't do well when it first came out.
Right.
It took over a year for it to go platinum. It took no. Forgive me. It took over 7 years.
Yeah, I'm about to say. I was thinking longer than that.
It took a year for it to go gold.
It took 7 years for that album to go platinum?
It went platinum in 2001.
Wow.
It was written, came
That's
out,
crazy.
Did 280,000 the first week. And in its first year, it sold 2 million records in its first year.
To date, it is the Nas's biggest selling album.
That's a fact. It is, in fact, his best-selling album to date. So we could talk about Illmatics and Hip Hop is Dead and all these other ones down the line. Streets Disciple, but his best selling. So again, the argument of you know, what are we doing here, right? What makes these two albums so special from the same guy? We get this split again, this imaginary split again of like this. He's getting too commercial, you know. We liked him like this, which is, I guess, what we could call underground, what we call hip hop.
Right.
I mean, how do you feel about that, Scam? I mean, what do you feel about that? What did you feel like when I guess our first introduction to It Was Written was, I mean, if you were mixtape heavy, you were paying attention to the mixes, but they didn't really give you an indication of what the album was. Like a single, I guess, If I Ruled the World was the first indication of like, oh, he got a girl on here? And,
right.
Oh, it's Lauren. Okay, but okay. And then Houdini and Curtis Blow. Okay. Like, so what did you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, the thing is, I think overall, even though I picked Illmatic, I think overall the better project would be It Was Written, and that was basically based off the consistency of those songs on the album.
Well, what was your first thought when you heard If I Ruled the World? Because I remember how I felt.
I thought it was a good record. It was definitely different from what we were used to.
A lot, but
no, I didn't like it at first. I didn't like it at jump.
It was Sellout. My first.
Yeah. Well, I was getting ready to say that, and something that you just also said too. I think also one of the things about it too is that Illmatic kind of has that New York gritty underground backpack army jackets. That's that New York with that album. You know what I mean? Whereas It Was Written now, it's like, okay, we got a little bit of money now. We could do a little bit more. We can be a little bit more, flashier. And I think It Was Written, because if you really sit back and listen to It Was Written, it's pretty consistent as far as the production and as far as the songs. Yeah, it's consistent overall. And the only difference is that with Illmatic, you had LES, Pete Rock, Large Pro, Q-Tip. On It Was Written, you had Havoc and Primo and Trackmaster. So it was a different dynamic, but the consistency overall was still really good. And I just think it was basically when you're a dedicated, let's say, fan, so to speak, you're not used to, again, we had this conversation a few episodes back where you're not used to your favorite artist being an artist and trying different things and trying new things. So I think that's another reason why it caught some of the backlash that it did too as well.
I mean, anybody else want to chime in? I mean,
I feel like with It Was Written, it was like, I wonder if people are mad because they feel like he peaked too early. I mean, you know, Illmatic was dope, dope, but I feel like, you know, It Was Written was like just, obviously I chose it a step above the production. The rhymes were just as good, if not.
Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, he had content. You know, say what you will, but you know, Black Girl Lost is a dope song.
Yeah.
Power is incredible.
Yeah, crazy.
And you know, it was content as well. And I think he just peaked so early that people were like, man, it you know. Because in full disclosure, the latter albums, Save, Stillmatic, and the last one he just put out, King's Disease, were, but I just feel like, man, Illmatic. I mean, It Was Written was complete. Not that Illmatic wasn't, but Illmatic was only 9 songs.
Right.
Like 34 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. It Was Written is 14 songs.
Yeah.
Two of them I didn't dig.
What happened?
Let's talk about so it's, you know, Hobo mentioned something right there when we talked about peaking maybe a little too early and all that stuff. But we have to keep in mind Nas's age at this time. Like I said, he's recording Illmatic 2 years prior, so that makes him probably like 16, 17, 18 years old by the time he's prepping what would become Illmatic.
Right.
You have that frame of mind and that classic. And when you think about that classic coming from the brain of a 16, 17, 18-year-old, right? 19, 20-year-old, because he's 21 by the time it comes out. Excuse me. So you got him at 23, maybe 24. I think he's actually 23 by the time It Was Written comes out. I mean, can you imagine trying to take someone that serious as like the next Rakim right now, someone saying like, yo, this next 21-year-old, this guy's it. And you're like, get the fuck out of here. I've seen the 21-year-old shit that comes out right now. I doubt this is the shit. And people probably say that about Nas at the time. So they hyped on him. He surpasses that, right? Boom. It blows away everybody's expectations. It's like, what the fuck is this? It's instant classic. It was written, delivers as well, at least numbers wise. He's young. He's a fucking kid. And he's defining what Hobo said, like kind of like the sound of where hip hop and rap is supposed to be and sound like at the time, dominating the charts at the same time. I mean, we're talking about, you got Biggie, Pac. These guys are still alive. Who else is in this circle at that time? It doesn't even matter. His maturity level is what I'm trying to say is insane. So, like, can we talk about where he's getting this insight? What made us take a young fucking teenager on the first album so serious that guys like me and Scan skipped out of school to go fucking get the album the day it comes out, and anticipate the second album so big that it's like, I need the next Illmatic in my life. Like, what is it about this young ass kid that made us flip out like that? Especially these two particular Hobo. I mean, excuse me. We went Hobo. I want to say Breeze. Like, what are you thinking about? Like, what?
I think. I believe it was, what was it, Live at the Barbecue?
Yeah.
Right.
When that first dropped, you heard him. I was like, this dude's nasty, man. Nasty us. And then it was like, I think when you were rapping with other people that were already out, and then you had people that were co-signing on him, and then when you heard him, it's like, this dude's nice. I want to hear more from him. So then, when the album came out, I just think that, and this is just from what I remember, when the album came out, like, this album is dope, people got it. But then I just think sometimes, especially in New York, it's very competitive. So it's like, no, well, this other artist is better than him, or this other artist is better than him. But then when he had the album out, the album is a dope album, and you have people that was behind the album, it's sort of like how, like in the South, where an artist in the South puts out an album, and then everybody pushes the album and helps push the album, and then it gets its numbers. But as you said, Nas didn't really break big on this album until 7 years later. I didn't think it was 7 years. I would have thought.
So here's the irony of just adding to your little statement right there, and you can keep going. It took a full year later for the album to go gold. So. Right. Upon the drop, which was an anticipation, the numbers weren't there. But the legend started to begin a year after. With people going, oh my God. Because again, they're still working this project. We got videos now. The buzz is insane. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh shit. So people caught on. And again, back then, a gold album for hip hop artists was big fucking deal. Like, it was like, good for you. We can re-up a second album.
But then again, the bootleggers heard him too.
I'm sure they heard a lot of people back then. I heard it specifically affected I heard.
But the thing about it is, just to kind of wrap up my point, no, you're good. People knew who he was. People were getting behind him. But I just think sometimes and I don't even remember every other artist that was out at that time, but there were probably some comparisons. And as a new guy coming into the scene, people probably hating on Nas. It's nothing really new. But then as he kept putting out mixtapes and getting on other people's projects, especially when he was doing songs with like the Wu and linking up with those cats and forging friendships. And then, him and Biggie was cool as well too. And then people started clicking. Then his name started getting out more, and people started gaining more interest. And they were like, you know what? I heard his first album was good. I'm gonna go get that first album. And that's why those numbers started going up, because they slept. A lot of those people probably slept on him in the beginning when his first album dropped, and they were like, "Yo, I gotta get the first album," because everyone kept talking about it. And when they listened to it, like, "Damn, how come I didn't get that album when it first dropped?" That's what I think happened.
Yeah. Again, the maturity level is the one of the defining moments for me in terms of like both of these projects. Again,
I agree. I feel like
no, please.
But I agree. I mean, I feel like it wasn't Illmatic wasn't basic, but
Oh, are you the same age as Nas? Is it safe to say that? You guys about the same age?
How old is Nas now?
He is, I think, 47?
If that's the case, then yes.
Okay. So
yeah, he's 47. Yeah.
So my I mean, you're about to make a statement, but it's
I thought him and Jay-Z was about the same age. So Jay-Z's older.
Jay's a little older. Jay's older.
Jay-Z and AARP, baby.
I still have to say, like you felt the same. He's a little older than the rest of us, for example. But so for us to look up to somebody around the Illmatic time, it's not that crazy to be like, oh, this older guy's about to be the shit. But you felt the same way as us, and being older, I'm assuming you felt the same way. Like, oh, this guy Nas. You didn't look at it like this younger guy, right? He was like, this guy Nas is coming. He's about to be
crazy.
So it's like, but then when you start to analyze it, but damn, today would you ever take someone younger again? Like if someone was telling you, like, yo, this 21-year-old, like this 20-year-old is like the next Rakim, because I'm sure that's what people were saying.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and then he delivers, and then on album 2, you're waiting for like this. Okay, let's see how you fuck this up.
Right, and he didn't.
On what side of the fence you're on, he fucked it up, because a lot of people feel like he did.
A lot of people feel like he did, but I don't. I mean, if any of you all feel that way, I would love to hear the thought behind it.
Feel that way? And again, you're not alone. It's a very well-spoken topic online. Again, this is the beginning of Nas' sellout.
I'm gonna tell you after Hobo finish. I'm gonna tell you why I think that is. But go ahead, Hobo, finish your statement.
I don't see how, if you are a fan of MCing and hip hop, for him to do such a good work with Illmatic, I mean, superlatives, I can't say it enough. But for him to match that, at the very least, he matched Illmatic with It Was Written. At the very least. So for people to say that he sold out, the only reason I could think of that is because, okay, he had the song with Foxy, and he had the song, we had 2 songs with Foxy. One was with The Firm. He had the song with Dre. So, like, is working with Dre, does that equal selling out?
I think the sound that he was displaying at that time was completely the opposite of him, especially with Dre specifically.
Because it wasn't as dirty. It wasn't dirty.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that.
Let's talk about the first man, really. The first man to rock a pink suit
was Nas.
Yeah.
So, like, again, so people were like,
but
remember, I'm one of them people too who's kind of like, what the fuck? I wanted more of like the intro of the message, like, you know what I'm saying, at the beginning of I Rule the World. They gave you a little snippet of the message a cappella. It's one life, one love. There can only be one king. It was like, what's that?
But here's the thing I'm gonna say too, man. And I think within the hip hop world, we get caught up in too much of the nonsense of what a rapper is supposed to look like or what a rapper is supposed to be. Because the thing is that we've moved into the era of hoodies, Tim boots, fitted hats, cargo, whatever. But then rappers wear suits, ties, and you can still wear a suit and tie and rap. But is it selling out when you change up your dress code, or is it the sound? Because the thing is that you have rap and rock that they've been doing collabos before Nas was coming out, but nobody ever said they were selling out. Like Run DMC did a song or a song with Aerosmith, Walk This Way.
Yeah, and people thought they were selling out then.
But at the end of the day, but if you look at rock music as a whole, who founded rock music? Black people. So at the end of the day, it's like, how are you really selling out? Because we get caught up in this vision of what a rapper is supposed to look like, and at the same time, it's like, you know what? You're supposed to look like this. You can't do that. But music is universal. So that's just like saying if a hip hop artist is putting out music and he's Black, then okay, well, this is this for us. Then white people can't listen to this music. That's like saying the same thing. Or if we do this type of music, why is Eminem in the game? He can't be in the game because he's white. And you can't look at it like that, because there are artists that have done collabos with other people, and it may have sounded kind of popish or whatever, but at the same time, if it had a pop beat and he's spitting some hot fire to it and people like it, I'm like, okay, well, it's a collaboration. It's hip hop with pop. That I don't really think it takes away from the artist if it's good, but if it's whack, people are like, oh, that's whack. I haven't listened to that. But if it was dope and it is something that can kind of carry over, I'm like, okay, cool. Like another example, and I'll let everyone else continue. Look at what the Guru did with Jazzmatazz. He was rapping on the jazz music, but was he selling out? No, he was not selling out. It's just another way of putting out a different type of sound, but still doing it in a hip hop way and doing a collaboration to come up with something new. That's it.
I think something real quick. I think something to Jules' point too, going back, is that you're looking at a 16-year-old versus a 23-year-old to begin with. And when Nas came out, I remember seeing the EPK on Video Music Box. They literally built him to be the next coming of Rakim, literally.
Yes.
And when Illmatic came out, remember, again, kind of going back to what I said, it has this very edgy New York sound. If we go back to something else I said a couple episodes back too, 95 was the pinnacle. So this is again the downside now of hip hop at its time. So I think that the fact this is Nas's second project, it's the pinnacle of when hip hop is changing. He's changing once again. He's trying something different as an artist. And I think people weren't really ready for the change so soon, kind of going to what maybe Hobo was talking about, where even though the album is completely solid, they weren't necessarily, in my opinion, they weren't necessarily ready for the change of the second album. I think they were expecting more, like, I Gave You Power tracks, you know what I mean? And not realizing, like, affirmative action is fire, the message is fire, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people weren't really ready, but they didn't understand too that if you're 23 years old, we were all 23 at some point. We weren't acting the same way we were acting at 16. We weren't doing the same things we were acting at 16. By the time we were
$1 million in your pocket.
Right, and that's what I was getting ready to say. You're going to clubs. You're going to clubs. You got girls now. You got money. You got cars. It's a different experience. It's a totally different experience now at this point. So in theory, you can't necessarily rhyme the exact same way as your old album because you have new experiences now to talk about. Excuse me.
Him going into the transition of Illmatic.
Yeah. I think Biggie
is just insane.
Biggie
like,
had
what you guys said, from a breeze to Hobo to like it, all of it. Like he managed to straddle the line pause of like, I'm gonna keep it a little bit Illmatic. I Gave You Power, the message, you know,
Live Nigga Rap.
Shootouts is crazy.
Shootouts is insane. Live Nigga Rap is crazy. What's my joint? The joint that Stretch did. I
know.
I need it like that. I want it like that.
Something like that. You whack MCs.
You whack MCs.
Yeah.
The only joints I didn't like from It Was Written is the one that Dre did, that Nas Is Coming.
Yeah, that was, to me, that was
sonically, weak. I kind of agree.
To me, that was weak.
It didn't.
No,
match.
I'm saying what he was spitting is good, but it didn't go with the beat. It didn't go with that sound.
Sonically, it didn't match. But
And
it's
Street Dreams. I wasn't feeling Street Dreams. I felt the remix more. Street Dreams, I wasn't feeling.
I like the remix. Well, let me ask you. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next portion of the show, but just to kind of briefly go around the room real fast. Again, maturity levels we're talking about. The kid was insane for putting out the kind of shit he put out on Illmatic, and then the young man that put out It Was Written. Out of these two albums, real quick around the room, which album showed, I guess, the most maturity in your opinion? Scam, we're gonna start with you.
Definitely, It Was Written. Definitely, It Was Written. That's one of the things like I've always maintained is just when you're an artist or in any field, you always have to keep evolving and keep changing, or else you get stuck. And then when you get stuck, you kind of get pigeonholed, so to speak. So it's the reason why, like I've said before, like in a loose comparison, but why you have a Madonna, why you have a Prince, why you have an MJ, and how they were able to last so long, because they have to keep evolving. You couldn't have fucking Michael Jackson still doing something like he was in the 60s. He had to update. You know what I mean? And then at the end of his career, he was doing tracks with like Floetrine, Jazzy Jeff, and those type of people. There's even a Jay Dilla remix with Michael Jackson.
Say again.
You know what I mean? So I still have to say is that It Was Written definitely. Say it again?
You're breaking up a little bit. You say something about Jay Dilla what?
Hello?
Yo, you're connected, buddy.
No, I Jay Dilla Michael Jackson remix.
Breaking up, bro.
Okay.
You hear it?
Yeah, what he was saying was that Dilla did a remix with Michael Jackson, which is true.
You did? For which song?
Yeah.
What is it?
Every day live your victory. Victory. I forgot. It's a remix.
What? That's crazy.
But anyway, I purpose all that to say it's just that, you know, you got to keep showing maturity as an artist, man. And I think that it was written overall as a solid work and a good block. It's just that it's not as gritty as Illmatic. And I think that was the problem.
Fair enough. So I understand your choice then. I get it.
I agree.
Oh, my bad, Trip. You want to say something?
I agree with Scan. I'm like, yeah, it was written is more maturity, but you know, I still got Illmatic in my heart though. But it was written is more mature. Yeah.
So okay, so you feel like it was written? Okay.
Yeah.
You got it. And Hobo, I mean, my bad. Hobo. Let's just go with you. I had Breeze next, but go ahead. I'm writing it down. Hobo, who you got?
I mean, it was written for sure. I mean, I remember a Biggie interview. People were asking him why he rhymed the way he rhymed, why he not rhyming, like why he wasn't rhyming anymore the way he did on
Ready to Die.
Ready to Die, and he was like, "I ain't broke no more. I'm not broke no more."
It is.
You know, and I think to be authentic, I mean, you know, I'm not saying that Nas just automatically went from Illmatic to like, because obviously it didn't go platinum for 7 years, but he was famous for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that changes your life experience.
Right.
Like y'all said, that changes your life experience. He's traveling all over the world, probably people paying for him to be there, you know, putting him up in these nice hotels, I'm sure, you know, people eating off of him, his boys or whatever. And I mean, it was just growth, man, and just a maturity. I mean, I wasn't thinking like that in 23. I don't know if y'all were. I wasn't.
The level of music that he's delivering at, like I said, that's at 23 when it came out, which, man, he's probably like 21, 22.
Right.
Coming up with this shit. Just insane. So you're going with it was written.
It was written. Yep.
And Cool Breeze. I mean, wrapping it up. What do you feel about, you know?
Maturity wise, I would go with it's written.
It was written.
Yeah.
Guys, we're gonna keep it moving. Again, another Eats Beats and Rhymes episode of Who Do You Got? Tonight we're talking about 2 classic albums delivered by the icon supreme Nas, aka Nasty Nas, aka Escobar, aka Queensbridge's King, aka Queens' biggest representative.
Godson.
Godson crossed the belly.
Cross the belly. You know you done lost already. We're talking about the infamous, excuse me, can't use that particular slogan when it comes to talking about this particular, we're talking about the iconic Illmatic album versus the iconic follow-up album. It was written by Nas. Keeping it moving forward. We're talking about let's get into the mind frame of Nas in this time. We're talking about maturity levels, we're talking about all of that, but let's not forget we're also talking about the 90s. Let's get into the era. Let's talk about the 90s real quick. Let's talk about how these 2 albums, again, 2 albums helped define a sound going on in the 90s. So what are your hip hop memories of the 90s, Triple C? What do you remember, I guess, going on? Let's call it in 90. Let's take it a year before Illmatic. You know, let's call it 92, 93. What are you thinking about? What are you vibing to before this fucking album came and, you know, hit you across the face?
Rocking a lot of Tribe back then, and
fair enough. Definitely me too.
It's like, yeah. But what Bree said earlier about the time period when you wore Timbs and the hoodies and everything, that I love that era. I love.
Yeah.
So that's what Illmatic brings to me. Like the way he spit it is the way we lived it.
Right.
Like it was easy to visualize.
But prior to you living it with him, pause. Like who else was defining that sound for you in your Walkman at that time, prior to it coming out? Because what I want to sort of examine is like the reason Illmatic, for example, first, right? The reason Illmatic was such a diamond was because the other albums weren't. The other albums were fly, because we can't deny. It's almost like trying American cheese for all your life until someone gives you some French cheese. You're like, oh shit, I didn't know it got that much better. Like yeah, like no, I got some really good American cheese, but like this French shit is on some. I never knew.
So see, I don't know about that one.
You don't feel like Illmatic
because
like
yeah, because you got to think in '93, 36 Chambers came out.
Okay, so talk about it. So you talking about WU-TANG?
36 Chambers came out. Midnight Marauders came out.
Mm-hmm.
Planets came out in 93.
Smith and Wesson.
Black Moon Into the Stage came out in 93.
That's Smith and Wesson.
I mean, so like
let's jump around too. Let's jump around. I mean, again, also
there was a lot of
96. What albums were out in 96?
96. Well,
you got some
95 was Cuban Links and Reasonable Doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Biggie.
Mm-hmm.
Biggie.
What year was All Eyes on Me? Was that 95? That was like a really big selling. I'm talking about like some hitters like Biggie, He Could Die, obviously. Like what Hobo said, Wu-Tang. I mean, this is what I was trying to bring up into the equation. Out of all this fire that we're talking about, Illmatic came and It Was Written came and still stands out amongst
true
gems. So like, what is it about this era that produced this kind of shit? Because even our quote unquote, and I say it just metaphorically, the ones that aren't these two albums that were like, they're not that, we're still fucking bananas.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you why, I think. If you look at it back then, right? Everyone had their own different type of sound. No one was trying to be like this person. No one was trying to be like that person. You could hear artists like this.
No biting.
Oh, that's Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's Tribe. Because everybody had a different sound. You could never mix a Jay-Z with a Nas with a Biggie. Everybody, all three of those artists were dope and had their own sound. So it's like when you look and listen to a lot of artists now, and not hating on all the artists, because there are some dope artists out right now, but it's like everyone kind of sounds is like, what artist is this? What artist is that? You kind of have to like, every artist kind of, well, not every, but a lot of the artists sound the same. I think back then you had more of a variety of different types of music.
Right.
And then I think if you like any of those artists that came out in that year, you can go to a club and listen to all these songs, but okay, that's dope. All right, that's dope. It's different, but it's dope. Like Tribe is not really hard, but why do people love the Tribe? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look at it, all of these artists in some way or some form were friends or worked with each other. Remember, Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest was producing for Nas. Nas did songs with Jay-Z and Biggie. You know, so it's like you got to look at it like that. I think.
No,
right. I agree.
With total, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, the reason I bring all that up is just to say, amongst all these gems, even like what Hobo brought up earlier, he just brought up just a few, but you got Black Moon's first album. You got Return to Boom Bap by KRS-One. You got Balloon Soul. I mean, you got Souls of Missions 93 till Infinity. You got a bunch of these, again, classic albums, right? And again, and I think if we were to, sort of have a sort of a matchup, if you will, again, of Illmatic for some of these albums, Illmatic probably will come out on top, I think, most times. At least I think so. So what was it amongst, like, sort of these albums that I just mentioned, 93, that made Illmatic stand out? Again, because back then, you still needed record promotion. You still needed like to be, have a single playing before an album drop. You needed the machine, and Nas wasn't getting radio like that.
It's your surroundings.
Especially on Illmatic.
Say again, Trip. I'm sorry.
I said, whoever your surroundings, whoever you click with, whatever music is playing, you get drawn to it.
How? I mean, again, so what's making Nas stand out?
Lyrical ability.
On what though? Like, so we heard a couple of verses. We heard.
Lyrical ability.
We heard like one song and two verses of it at that point. We had heard Live at the Barbecue years before that.
Right.
We later heard Back to the Grill.
Right.
Right.
And then we heard,
What?
halftime
Yeah,
I think they did it for people.
Right.
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 But I mean, in Live at the Barbecue, he said, when I was 12, I went to hell for snuffing Jesus.
That was shocking.
Mm-hmm.
And he was 16 when he said that.
Right.
I mean,
Even in the 90s, and that's got to be what, 91, 92?
yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
That kind of line in 91, 92, you go, and then you don't even, I didn't know that he's like what you just said, like 16.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I had known that back then, I would have flipped. Like
Me too. If I had known how old he was,
you would have put such a battery in my back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because back then I think we all tried to write rhymes at that point. Like I know I definitely would you're bored in class, you do something, and then back then you write rhymes. I would have put such a battery in my back. I'm not saying they were any good, but it definitely would have been like. In fact, he was older than me still at that point, but like.
He just know how to put stuff together. He know how to put the rhymes, the image. He know how to put it together.
I mean, and he gets the credit for it. It'll matter too. I mean, Large Professor obviously,
right,
over his shoulder the entire time, but like,
right.
there is no magic. He does. I don't even feel like Large Professor gets the credit he deserves. Probably.
Right. Right.
Like he doesn't take on the Quincy Jones sort of vibe of the project. Like, I did what I showed him. When we all know that's kind of like what happened. But still, what made him still sort of like this magical executive producer? Right? Is he the executive? Is he who's the executive producer?
I don't think so.
I thought Search was, but
yeah,
he might be, and we all know that he's there just for paper reasons.
I don't think Lost is executive on it.
Let's see.
The producers are Faith Newman and MC Search.
Mm-hmm.
Faith Newman and MC Search. So, but I don't feel, even if pardon me, I feel like even if it's true, that's just paper, like sort of like just make sure we have our dots crossed.
Sure.
Because Search even openly, I think I just saw an episode of Drink Champs recently. He limits his amount of interaction on that album and keeps it very humble. Like, this is what I did, and not really anything too much musically involved. So that's all Lost Professor, right? Again, not getting like, but nobody took on nobody, including himself. Nobody took on the role of like this. I'm overseeing this project. Because even if it's a planned move by MC Search and Faith, like you never saw them in any of the EPKs or anything.
Right. I mean, I think too. That's also because, you're talking about, if you go back to the first album, if you go back to Illmatic, you're talking what, 94. So most of these guys, like let's say Pete Rock, for instance, Pete Rock didn't even hit his best stride just yet. So it's kind of like, I think everybody's still, even from the producer's mind, like, they have names, but they're still on the come up. You know what I mean? Like Pete Rock today, as we know he's a legend, but after that is when I think he started hitting his real like stride, like back to back. Same thing with Primo. You know what I mean? And all these guys who were on the album. I think Q-Tip even too. I think that was the first time we actually Is it? Yeah, it was this, and then after that was Mobb Deep's album where you started to say, oh shit, Q-Tip is producing records.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's one of those things where I especially from the stories that I've heard of, Preem, Pete, Q-Tip, like they will all go to record conventions together. Like, they were more friends than anything. You know what I mean? So I don't necessarily know if it was correct. Musical. If it was something where I got this is my album. You know what I mean? I think it was more of like, now we're all going to lend to this creative work and create a bigger picture for the audience.
But still, I mean, that communication has to go through one person to.
Sure.
And that's Paul. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, that's Launch Professor. So I feel like amongst, like I said, his whether it's a chess move to like, let the young guard, like, let it look like he doing all this shit by himself. Whether it's the chess move, whatever, it worked because like I said, didn't have the, like, you never heard again, like almost everybody that gets introduced to rap gets like this introduction, you know, via managed by like, you know, signed to like it was never like that with him. You know what I'm saying? And in the midst of like that year of '94, you got Ready to Die. You got The Sun Rises in the East. You know what I'm saying? We got on another level of spectrum, which would eventually become a whole division of hip hop that we ignored for so long, and I will say we ignored Southern Playlistic Cadillac Music by Outkast. And as you mentioned earlier, Pete Rock CL Smooth with the main ingredient. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Gangsta Hard to Earn. It's all the same year. And this little kid, compared to everybody that I just mentioned, he's the youngest out of, I think, everybody in this list.
Sure.
Drops
Again.
and again, it gets this buzz going of like, and is involved with production from a lot of the people that I mentioned from this list. As, kind of insane. So what do any of those albums that I mentioned to any of you guys in the room right now, do any of them go against Illmatic?
I mean,
I like them all.
You gotta. I mean, I feel like
it's fine. Again, we talking about Ready to Die. We're talking about The Sunrise in the East. Southern Playlist, like music, the main ingredient. You got Beastie Boys, No Communication. You got Scarface, The Diary, Gangstar Heart.
That's what's so good about
96?
that era.
This is 96 or 94 we're talking?
94.
That's what's so good about that era. And you can play anything you want and it still be good.
The beautiful thing about that era. I love that, Triple C. Thank you very much, because I'm going to segue somewhere with that. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a kid who came out, again, stood out amongst all these albums, right?
Yeah.
Anybody will, I think, have that conversation. Best album in '94, we're talking about Illmatic, hip-hop wise. And then does something similar in '96, right? Because in '96, what are we competing against in '96 here? In '96,
I think J. Rule again.
I think Jay-Z joint came out.
Nah, Reasonable Doubt. Outkast came out again with AT Aliens.
Okay.
The Fugees with The Score. All eyes on Me. Stakes is High.
All Eyes on Me is
right.
Let's not overlook that. What was the next one? I'm sorry.
Stakes is High.
Great album.
Yep.
The Coming came out in '96.
The Coming by who?
96. Busta Rhymes. The Coming.
Right.
Philadelphia Half-Life came out in '96.
Wasn't a fan yet at that point.
Iron Man came out in '96.
Wow, yeah.
Man, so all have a different sound.
Sound.
Yeah, and that's something that I think that was very vital to hip hop. And we discussed it before, man, where, you know, in the US, every region had its own particular sound, and that's kind of what made artists stand out even much more back then as opposed to now, where if you put on commercial radio, you have to, it sounds like one big mixtape playing. You know what I mean? Because everything kind of sounds similar sometimes. But back then, you really had to do your best to really stand out. And that's what gave each region the type of artist that we have today. Like, that's what gave you a Souls of Mischief. That's what gave you a Scarface, because everybody sounded different. But then also were the best in their region. You know what I mean? And, you know, I think that's what made some of these albums, you know, made that album even stand out like that.
Yo, Triple C, let me ask you a question real quick. So out of all these albums we mentioned, you know, from '96, it was written hold its weight when we're talking about, you know, AT Aliens by Outkast, classic, you know, all the albums that Hobo mentioned. Again, Illadelph's Half-Life, Stakes is High, The Score by the Fugees. I mean, Iron Man. Does it was written hold its weight in gold as far as the hottest album of that year? Yeah,
because back then that's when the comparison between Jay-Z and Nas came in.
They dropped it, right. Reasonable Doubt came out, right? That's actually right.
So that's when so some people would play Nas, then later on you're gonna hit Jay-Z down the block, you know,
depending on the car.
Yeah, so that's when the battle really. But
that's when Jay-Z's hate started to bubble.
I actually heard it was the other way around. I heard it was from some of the research that I did, respectfully, that I was doing on tonight's episode of Eats Beats and Rhymes. Don't forget, Who Do You Got, every Monday, 8 o'clock live Eastern Standard Time. Was that Nas threw a line? I think it's in the message. Your little Lex with TVs and the headrest is light or some shit like that. And Jay was known for having a Lex with TVs at the time. And again, this is like, it sounds so like, well, how would everybody did that back? Like, no, they did not back then.
No, they did not.
So you mentioned, I didn't even know.
You were a big deal if you were doing shit like that back then. So much that people knew who you were. So it was like, he knew like, yo, that's a little shot at me. And again, the article that I read tonight had Trackmasters straight up confirming like, yo, that was definitely. And Nas kind of confirms it, but like he sidesteps it, like if you was a big dog back then, you was doing shit like that. Jay have something like that? Oh, I guess he was a big dog. Like that's not. I'm paraphrasing, you know what I'm saying? But like definitely, again, you know what I'm saying? Because the one life, one love, there can only be one king was a shot at Big,
right?
You know what I'm saying? So for people that got that confused,
that's crazy because I never broke it down like that. I just loved it. I just never broke. I didn't ever. I wasn't looking for it.
So again, so you got this 23-year-old, right? He's probably 22, 23 when again, letting his nuts hang in New York, like yo, king of New York, against dudes who have album and platinum plaques on their wall.
Right.
You don't got one yet. You feel me? And he's like, nah, fuck that, I'm the king. And he knows his second album is anticipated. For all the lackluster of the album sales of Illmatic, we were all fiending for like, let's just call it Illmatic too. You know what I'm saying?
So who did Big diss in Kicking the Door then? Who's that for? J-Ru. Okay, I thought so. Okay.
J-Ru, yeah.
Okay.
Son, you fuck. What did he say? What did he say about Primo? He's talking about Primo and that shit too.
I'm surprised you run with them because they nothing but dicks.
Yeah, there you go. Respectfully. Rest in peace, Big. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying J-Ru was the truth too, man.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to J-Ru for being such a hip hop guy and giving up like the beat for 10 Crack Commandments, which we now have today is known as the 10 Crack Commandments. So I mean, light trivia, I'm sure everybody knows if you don't know the story. Back in the day, Angie Martinez, Hot 97, New York City, used to have a radio show called on Hot 97 called the Hot 5 at 9. And people would send in, like hip hop artists, like legit hip hop artists, would send in radio promo, like show, like beats, like songs for the show. You had like J-Ru on top of Primo's 10, what wasn't called the 10 Crack Commandments at the time. The B-Nuts, Tony Touch, like there was just a bunch of rappers at the time just making shit like that. I think even Pun, like everybody, like it was just like, and Puff was at the radio station one day, gets the call from Big, like, yo, tell Primo I want that joint. Puff's on the radio while doing his interview about some other shit, telling Primo, hit me up. Primo hits him up, the rest is history. But they go through J-Ru first, because respect the song first.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Primo was like, I don't know if it's gonna happen. Puff,
yeah, I heard that story.
Puff got like a little issue. He said, you and Brew got a little issue. He said, ask him. He said, I'm gonna ask him. He was expecting sort of like a not gonna happen, and J-Ru was like, yeah, this hip hop, yo, whatever, like it's all good. So shout out to J-Ru if he ever hears it. Because,
that's dope. I did not know that.
If Puff gave him some bread for that joint, kid.
I'm sure. Look, the one thing I don't think Puff is dumb. I think he know how to network, so I'm sure he probably kept at least Preem happy.
And another thing, I want to hear that song, man, because was the
word
on that track already?
These are all you can find them on YouTube. These are all promo records that Angie Martinez had for a show called The Hot 5 at 9. He even explains via the beat how it only goes up until 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Because it was at 9 o'clock, and he only cuts from 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then kind of just lets cuts it back.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
And then he said when it became Big's record and the whole concept and everything, he was like, I got to find a 10.
It's on here. It's on YouTube. It's called J-Ru the Damager Hot 97 promo 10 Crack Commandments original. Yeah.
Play it. If you see if we can turn it up a little bit.
Hold on.
I did not know that.
Yeah, man.
Here we go. Hold on. I'll see if you can hear it. Can you hear it?
Not at all.
Not even a little
You
bit.
got your headphones on? Maybe you gotta unplug the headphones.
All good if we can. All good.
Please stop. Please stop.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, I don't have to hear it.
nah.
No.
But on the
Look it up when you
Let's bring it back to Nas. Let's bring it back to
yeah.
Nas.
On another note though, like where y'all were saying that y'all were surprised that when If I Rule the World, he had Lauren on it. But the score came out in '96.
Right.
Yeah.
So she was hot. She was white hot at that point.
No. Let's. So the Fugees are definitely hot, but they weren't Kill See Me Softly hot yet. They weren't.
The score came out. What do you mean?
Score came out, but that single wasn't the first single.
Yeah.
First was Fuji Live.
That album did great, man.
It did. I'm not trying to listen. She was huge. That's why they put her on the record. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, right? Plus they're label mates, but she wasn't like you know what I'm saying. She wasn't fucking Lauren yet. Like she was like Lauren Hill.
I don't know.
She's the girl from the Fugees. Like
I don't know. I think you're citing her just to scotch there, brother. I don't think so.
Fuji Live is the first single running. Fuji Live.
Yeah, but that was huge.
It was huge. It was. So that's why I'm saying. So when she gets on the record, it's kind of like, she's because again, this is them starting to go crossover, but they're not crossover yet. They're before. They're what's that saying? Like killing me softly. Like huge in a hip hop sense. International world domination, like Grammys, blah blah. That's Killing Me Softly. Same album, I get it, but like it's a time sequence. It's like believe me, it's a difference between those dudes were always flying on a commercial flight to then private jetting it at one point. You know what I'm saying? So it's like a difference in money at that point. Long story short, Lauren is huge. It makes us go, what the fuck? What? Why her? Like, why not like Mary or why not like we didn't consider this chick like to be. First of all, we didn't even know Lauren was singing like that at that point.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna say I'm gonna have to go back on it because she was acting. She was in Sister Act.
She was in Sister Act and she was singing.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I wasn't connecting dots like that with her at that point.
Right.
I just knew she was dope from the Fugees. She was just starting. I mean, she would melodically play with shit, but she wasn't like that. Was like one of her first times, like really like. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Nah, because Sister Act 2 was in '93, and she was singing in that.
Was, but I'm trying to say, for example, in the same article that I read doing research tonight, they said they put out the song White Label, and people were like, again, like, I don't know about this shit. Like, what I mean, they got excited when they finally came out with the video and the song, and it was like featuring Lauryn Hill. Like they didn't know it was Lauren, so that made them go. Oh. But the name made it go, oh shit! Like this is gonna be a big deal again because it's like Justin Timberlake finally going solo. You know what I'm saying? Like this is one of her first, one of Lauren's first like me minus these two niggas were back. You know what I'm saying? Like
True.
And singing, and it's like, huh? What is commercial ass shit? What is going on? Like, it was weird. I'm telling you, and I love that record today, but I always go with first instinct as far as giving my honest reaction to what I think is a good or a bad record. And I feel like a lot of people, and I love It Was Written, that like that was singing. I was just like, I don't know about this joint. I don't know. But I was quickly over it though, because I fell in love with the beat. Like, I remember scratching for hours to that beat. I just really fell in love with that fucking beat. Like, I just love, shout out to Trackmasters. But basically, all over this fucking album. So just moving quickly again across the board, we're talking about two albums in the 90s, two different points in the 90s, 94, 96, 2 years apart, but madness that dropped from those 2 points in between. And again, these two albums seem to stand out and shine amongst a bunch of other fucking just undisputable classics. So again, I just want to go around the room real quick in terms of the 90s era and that sound that was so this is something I wanted to bring up when we talk about the eras real quick. Just bear with me for a second. You got ILLMATIC that came out in 94. Hip hop is still finding its feet, right? You have Heavy D doing kind of like happy kind of stuff. You still have underground shit. You have a variety of different sounds, like Breeze was mentioning. Everybody had like their own different sounds. And then you have Illmatic, which I feel like defined a certain kind of, this is how it's going to be going forward. And people falling in line, like, yes, we spit now. We don't fucking, you know what I'm saying? Puff managed to master that again, but it was fine for Illmatic to come out in '94 because those kind of albums were accepted. You could drop a hardcore album, such as like J-Ru back then, and still still go gold. You know what I'm saying? '96, and Scan brings us up in a lot of conversations, is the tipping point of when things start to change musically in terms of even like radio sound. Radio started to, again, like Puff, for example, with Big, wanted to sort of like make this not them specifically, but they helped sort of create this divide down the middle of what was
street and what's commercial,
and and what's like a Jeep knocking record for the street. What it was written and Illmatic managed to do at that time was, one, represented what was still considered, let's just call it backpack hip hop, right? Real hip hop. And it was fine because, again, in that era, '94, you could do that. Gangstar, all these people were still doing that. Nobody was coming out with a combination of both of this marriage, right? Except for Big later on, right? And then you got Nas doing it in '96. And I think we all agree doing it exceptionally well. What kind of risk is he taking at that point, doing some shit like that? Like, again, trying to satisfy both ends of the spectrum with records like If I Ruled the World and I Gave You Power.
I mean,
he's one of the first to do it. I mean, again, Bad Boy coined it and marketed and packaged it way better.
Right.
But this marriage of like, made us go, what the fuck is going on here? I know it made me do that because, again, Big was introduced to us that way. Like, I got this for the radio record, I got this ladies record, and I got this street record for y'all. So it was.
Well, I feel like first
Nas did the same thing. Trackmasters, Primo. You know what I'm saying?
True, but it was only one Primo track on that album. But first of all, shout out to B Sharp, and Mulo for the check-in in the chat room. Peace to y'all.
What up, fellas?
But I mean, it's not like the rhymes on It Was Written are like soft commercial rhymes. Save, if you want to call If I Rule the World commercial rhyme, I don't know. I mean, it was fairly controversial what he was saying. He was talking about I'd send all the prisoners back to Africa. Like, he was talking some like liberation, Black Power type stuff. It wasn't, and it was not 2021 where Black Lives Mattered. So
we didn't expect that from Nas, though. It was just like we expected more Illmatic. Again, we were again, like you mentioned, there's only one Primo track. The fact that we say that, like, as if like so there's a Primo track, like, but I feel you because it's like, but there was only like one. And where's their what happened? Where's Large Professor in this situation? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Right. We were all like off our rocker. Like, what's going on? Like, you know the formula. It worked. In our eyes, right? Because we're young.
Right.
It worked. We love it. Like, what the fuck? But his pockets are like, man, it didn't work.
But also too, I want to add something real quick that we're not mentioning about this era. Also, this '96 era. This is also the era of when you start to hear these mafioso lyrics. Everybody's mafioso bosses now.
Yeah, Jules mentioned
Hip hop changing, it's evolving again.
Yeah, and I think that was another thing too, where that whole mafioso era got introduced into hip hop at this point too. So again, it goes back to where it's really the turning point for a lot of things at this particular time. So
no different than like Lil Durk.
Yeah.
At this point in life, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. This 23 was kind of like, listen, this is what's hot right now. I'm about to do this shit. I'm young. I like popping champagne in the fucking club. You know what I'm saying? I like bitches at the end of the show, not a bunch of niggas. Like, I like that. And women are reacting. Radio's reacting. Money's coming in. Records are selling. But we're all like,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's a breakup.
Not a bad record, but
it's like a breakup because it's changing. Shit's changing.
And he's getting old.
And
he's allowed.
What's that?
And he's older. He's allowed to.
True.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like just like it's splintering off, like you said earlier, where we're going into that. You're going into mafioso lyrics on this side, and bling and $1 million choppers.
That's what was
over here. You still have the backpacks and the train, and this is where you begin to see that divide of what backpack will then go on to translate into like a rocket sound, so to speak, versus Puff now, and that type of style, and Fat Joe and things like that, where we're talking big money and choppers and big bricks, and this is where that divide. This is where you start to kind of see that divide. And this album, maybe the testament of like that divide now going on to like future years in hip hop.
Yeah, I think so. If you look at Only Built for Cuban Links, they started talking about the mafioso stuff.
Right.
Changed their name.
They went from karate to mafioso.
Right.
And
certain members.
Nas was on that album though.
Right.
And so I think I imagine he was probably writing. It was written around the same time.
Right.
And so that
was the wave.
That was the move.
That was the right.
I think he did it better.
He's like, yo, this shit is hot. This drill music is hot.
The drill.
Real. they doing the shit in Staten Island. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna do shit here, like, and again, respectfully, because he did it a la Drake style. Like, let me do one with y'all. You know what I'm saying? Let me show up on y'all shit, because I'm still the god though. Because I'm still get that respect. So they like, Drake, get on like again. He got on that joint, and again, it just sounded real good together. So good that I'm surprised we haven't seen more Riz and Nas production, to be honest.
Me too.
But again, it's another. Again, was that a chess move? Or was it just a natural? Let's just make music together. I mean, the question, that we'll never know. But the era of the '90s, again, I think it helped add to the turning point of the kind of sound that it was written, and Illmatic came to the table. We're gonna keep moving on real quick. Again, another episode of Eats Beats and Rhymes. Who do you got? Episode Illmatic versus It Was Written. Which album did it for you? Which album was the one that stands out? When we were talking about both these projects, let's talk about the producers real quick. Let's have a specific conversation about the producers. Let's talk about how Illmatic had, some of the craziest lineups in producer history. I don't know if we're gonna go over it real quick, but if we have to, Primo, Large Professor, Pete Rock, LES, Q-Tip, and then you have It Was Written, that again at the time blew my mind. Like, what is this lineup?
Yeah, that lineup sound like it's platinum.
You're talking about Primo again, but you're talking about Dr. Dre, Trackmasters, LES, Havoc, Stretch, Live Squad. It reads really nice. It reads really Dr. Dre, Premier, Havoc. You know what I'm saying? Trackmasters, who are still like, they're popping, but I don't know how you guys feel. I feel Trackmasters don't get the respect they deserve. They fucking
they were hot.
They defined the sound in radio specifically, in hip hop radio, hip hop like world, that was just insane, and helped define this album. So let's talk about the producers real quick. How do people feel about it? Does anybody else feel a way about Trackmasters, good or bad? I mean,
well,
they helped influence this album.
The
producers.
Who did Street Dreams?
They did.
Trackmasters.
That's why I didn't like. I wasn't feeling that one.
Oh,
yeah. Let's unpack that, Trip. So you have a preconceived notion, like I think a lot of us did at that time, about Trackmasters, and you were like, oh, it must be them then, because I didn't like that one. What didn't you like about that record?
It sounded cheesy. It sounded real cheesy.
Well, Pac used that same exact sample on his album.
Yeah.
Well, All Eyes on Me. I mean, does that literally the song All Eyes on Me? I mean, did
I don't know. I wasn't a big Pac fan like that. I like Pac, but I wasn't a big. So
Triple C just so biased. Illmatic.
Trackmasters did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 songs on that album.
They executive produced the album. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Oh. What songs did they produce on the album?
The Message, Street Dreams, Watch Them Niggas, Affirmative Action,
Featuring Foxy, Mega, and
Foxy, Mega, and AZ. Shootouts, and If I Rule the World.
Let me ask something real quick, Hobo, and it's coming off your man B Sharp. B Sharp says one of the biggest differences between the two albums is big budget record label influence. I preface that.
Dre, bro, he's still Dre.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I preface that to say, like, I think too the track masters at the time, Tone and Poke at the time, they weren't really. They had street records, but they weren't really known for their street records at the time.
This was their jumping point. This was their
like to be honest, if we want to keep it 1,000, especially for that era, when we think of street records or gritty hip hop or anything dark, again, you Pete Rock, you know, Primo, Large, RZA later on, Marley Marl. You're thinking of these producers. So the fact that it's the track masters and they're not known for street records like that, even though they have, but they just never really, they weren't big, so to speak. You know what I mean?
But hold up, so quick fast scan, because I know you're good at this. But what's the street record that we all know that they did back in the early 90s?
Oh, Red Hot Love a Tone, Give It Up.
No. Track masters.
A track masters record that they did. Typewriter, Louis Rankin, I believe.
No. I was talking about Coogee Rap and DJ Polo.
On the Run?
On the Run.
Yeah.
They did On the Run?
Both
versions. Yeah.
Both versions.
Ooh.
And you see that? That's a big record.
Ooh.
That's a big record. And they weren't known for it. And that's why it's crazy.
I didn't know they did that.
Look at Triple C now. Look at him.
Wow. Wait. I like it.
And the other version. And who did Ill Street Blues? Didn't they do Ill Street Blues too? I think they might have done Ill Street Blues.
I think they might have also.
Somebody look that up. Please, that's a mind blower right there.
I'm looking it up right now.
Might have.
I think that's a mind blower right there.
They might have.
Their flowers. I've been said it.
They might have.
Their fucking flowers.
If it wasn't them, it was Marley, I think. But it might be them, I think.
It was them.
I think it was them, yeah.
I think it was them.
Somebody look that up real quick.
Track masters.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's they weren't known. That's the thing. When we think of. Go ahead.
I was just saying that's for Triple C.
When we think of street records, we don't think of those records with track masters. You think of R. Kelly and Dancing and all of those type of records.
And Maya.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's the thing. They didn't have the reputation, even though they did big records. So they kind of don't get the love that they should have gotten for doing this album.
They dominated hip hop radio airwaves for a long time. Their sound.
There was a Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis of hip hop.
Yes,
for sure.
That's a very good comparison. I would say yes.
Yo, B Sharp has another good point. He said Illmatic was made without record exec influence. After the impact of Illmatic, the exec took notice to Nas, and you can tell they played a part in the creation of It Was Written, which I agree with.
Good point. Full credit. Steve Stout proudly and very bullishly takes pride and credit for that. He says like I had to come up. I mean, whether it's more exaggerated or not, fact of the matter remains It Was Written and it's fucking fire. You know, if he did do what he said he did, you know, have power to you. And if you're just hyping yourself up, then whatever, the album's still fire either way.
But, Puffy bust you in the head.
It was a decision that Steve Stout said he came up with. I kind of believe it because Nas again is a fucking kid.
Yeah, true.
And it was written too. We got collabos. You got Foxy. You got Prodigy, Lauryn Hill,
official Mobb Deep.
Mobb Deep, Dre, the whole Firm thing. That was the first Firm appearance, right?
Yeah.
So insane, the jump off idea, and then like we got the album a year later with. That's another conversation, another part.
Yeah,
right.
The idea, and especially that particular record. Can we talk about real quick before we have to move on from the subject? How fire affirmative action is it? Affirmative action?
Affirmative action. Yeah, classic.
Yeah. Fire.
I learned today, researching. I don't know if it's true, but I mean, it literally had quotes in it. That Foxy met Nas for the first time during the recording of that record.
Did Jay-Z write those rhymes for Foxy?
So from what it was explaining, because again, Tony Pope, the large portion of the interviews about Tony Pope, produced and basically signed Foxy. She was a Trackmasters artist, but production deal, Trackmasters, I'm almost sure. And they know who she worked with, like, you know, since they were so privy to Foxy, Inga as they were always called. And they said like Steve Stout was around when they met for the recording of that record, and he was like, she was in love with him. He's like, not on the sexual thing, but it's like also like it's and she would write her own shit, but anybody will tell you that she's always had help for sure. And you could see Nas pen on a bunch of shit, and you could definitely see Jay-Z's pen on a bunch of other shit. And but what anybody will tell you throughout the scenes that this Foxy put in her dues. Like she was one of the artists that like in New York went to like Lyricist Lounge. And again, if anybody knows about Lyricist Lounge out there, it was just like an early hip hop den of something along the lines of like the 8 Mile movie of like the pop shop. You know what I'm saying? And it went on to become sort of like compilation and mixtapes and whatever. So she's the kind of artist that would show up to things like that, and she was getting her little buzz on. But you know, it's like anything else. Like she's dope, but if she did it this way, you know, she still got it. She still got
face in a puss.
Yeah. But she sounded like she was stuck in the new the firm on Nas' last album.
Yeah, that was trash.
Yeah, she sounded like she was stuck on that time period.
Well, respectfully, keep in mind she's also partially deaf. We got to cut.
He is. Yeah, true.
A little slack shout out to Foxy Brown. Hope you get better. Again, so we just wanted to cover the production. So again, I'm just gonna go around the room real quick. We know what the subject matter is. We know who produced on what albums. I put it in the air. DJ Hobo, Illmatic. It was written. What producer lineup sort of grabs your savvy more?
I'm going to venture off, and I'm going to say Illmatic with that one.
Got it. Stay less. Triple C, how we feeling?
Yeah, you know what I'm about to say.
Illmatic. Got it. Cool Breeze, how you feeling?
I'm gonna go with Illmatic because that's kind of set the foundation for who Nas was, and it had a real gritty sound and
insane.
And that's his classic. So
insane. Scan, what do you think about here?
Yeah, you know me, I say Illmatic.
Hey,
represent.
It's renounding. Is that how you say it? Resounding. It's an Illmatic sort of day. We're gonna move along a little quickly here because we're gonna wrap things up shortly. Again, Eats Beats and Rhymes catch us every Monday night on Twitch Live TV. Eats Beats and Rhymes, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram. Everybody in the room, follow us up. I just realized I don't have my whatchamacallit up. My
oh no.
Follow me. If you haven't followed me, then you follow me, and then you follow me. So there you go. So moving on, we're talking about Illmatic versus It Was Written. NAS spells letters Nas. It sounds like a lot of the feeling tonight is definitely overpowering sense of Illmatic being the favorite in the room tonight. Again, nothing wrong with that. It is the classic that it earned itself to be. But I posed the question. We've been having conversation most of this night, and I love conversing with you guys every week, live Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch, on the Eats, Beats, and Rhymes channel.
See what you did there.
I posed to you, my fellow hip hop heads, and anybody in the chat room and in the world watching and listening, if Illmatic is such a classic, then why has It Was Written been the best-selling album to date for the rap?
Ooh. Rules again with the hard.
And again, we bigged up both albums all night, respectfully. We've bigged up both albums all night. But it's the simple question. It's the paradox, the chicken and the egg. Like, so if you need ID to get ID, You know what I'm saying? So if Illmatic is so ill, as it claims itself to be in the title, why is it still not outsold?
I don't know. A lot of people taking sleeping pills. So I don't know.
I'm gonna say maybe
the legacy that Illmatic has today.
But I'm gonna say I think people who didn't really know Nas's Live at the Barbecue or whatever, or his Illmatic song, they slept on. They look at it was written as his first album.
Okay.
I would say people look at it like, okay, maybe that's their introduction to who Nas was, and then they went back and did their homework after that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, overall too, man. I'll add. I think overall it was written again as a better body of work overall, and had the bigger singles. I think in comparison, even though that's up for debate. Even saying that, because we know the singles that are off Illmatic, but I think it was written had the bigger records. Yeah. Say it again.
In terms of reach.
Yeah. And because of that, I think that's the reason why it's outsold to this day. It's a better body of work, and it had better reach.
You know what, Jules?
What are you picking then?
Say it again.
So if you had to pick between the two, like which one would you pick?
I mean, again, for from an artist perspective, if I want a better package, I go with It Was Written. If I want nostalgia and feel good, I go with Illmatic.
Well, I mean, yeah. So okay, that's the part you added now. I was gonna say because in the beginning you mentioned that.
Yeah.
But what's the root of it? Like I said, so you gave your answer, but does that define what? So let's talk about like the sound of Illmatic for one quick second. It's
sure.
Summarizing in terms of anybody that knows their hip hop, right? You could be like, what? But doesn't know about Illmatic. Like Illmatic, what does it sound like? Sounds like DJ Premier. Like, oh, okay, cool, got it. And like and P Rock, like, oh shit, okay, I got it. And then give them a sound definition of this one. You mentioned track masters because you have to, right? 70% of the fucking album, and you just Premier.
Right.
But you don't get the same album.
Right.
You get a bigger selling album.
Right.
I think
why? So again, and even with the nostalgia, again, I think everybody can argue that Who Was Written is a great album, but you know, when you talk about Nas's legacy, you don't talk about it was written first. Everybody
This is true.
The album gets performed. Hobo, what was a thing in your city a few years back? You know, Nas Illmatic album was performed at the Kennedy Center.
Oh yeah.
It was written
with the orchestra.
Right. It wasn't. It was written orchestra. You know. I
think
not that white stuff. No,
not that white star.
They didn't do that stuff over there. So again, and I think it went into the it recently into some kind of archives. What archives did they go into? And did it get
the Library of Congress? Was it Library of Congress?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean,
they have like a Harvard class based on Illmatic.
Yeah.
It was like Illmatic did what it was like quote unquote supposed to do. Right? This is big standard. Like imagine my album.
So I think the question is what you actually is part of your question, Jules, which is a great question, by the way. B Sharp brought up a good point and said timing of release. I mean, when Illmatic was released, hip hop was not even arguably not as hot as it was when It Was Written came out. But the question that I asked,
a 2-year difference.
But that was a big difference.
It was, but it's still the 90s. Like it's not like technology changed at that point. We were still receiving records the same sort of way at that point. You know, it was like it again. There was so much hip hop to enjoy.
Yeah,
we fucking enjoy the shit out of these two projects
right.
so much. You know
I wonder why people have. To answer your point, I wonder why more people haven't gone back to it, because when I was in my research and I was looking as well. I am sold more copies than Illmatic.
It's crazy.
What's that about? What? And it's been bootlegged. There was a whole story about that. We could talk
about. It was bootlegs,
but like,
and it was not that good.
because
Right.
it's bootleg. They had to moderate the track listing just because too much shit leaked. But you're right. There's another fucking. I didn't know that, by the way. But like, I believe it because talking about now the record industry, specifically Sony, you know, the parent company, believes in him as a superstar at this point and is putting all types of, you know, prime status to him. So he's getting, you know, he cuts in line when it comes to anybody else, any other hip hop act coming out in that building. So, you know, they'll push, you could push those type of numbers to make something like that happen. It's not easy. But you
I'm saying it's like Illmatic was street loved. It was written as commercially loved. So
why didn't the streets support it?
you know, the streets, they went, it's just the streets. They spend money on
Okay, so let's skip the streets for a
But
second.
there wasn't really bootlegging back then.
Sorry, say again.
They weren't. I mean, from my perspective, granted, y'all were in New York. They weren't really bootlegging in '94 like they were in '96.
I think they were.
They were, bro.
They were.
They were. Okay.
Yeah.
They were bootlegging before the beginning of the time, man.
My first bootleg that I stole was Easy Does It. Easy.
Damn, you didn't even buy it?
You didn't even buy the
They
bootleg.
weren't looking at the little kid. I was a little fucking, like, they weren't even looking at me. I was like,
You stole from the thief.
I stole from the I think I still have that cassette somewhere. So
That's low. That's very low.
so you're right. Breeze. The sound was very low. It was a very bad sound.
Yes. I saw what you did right there.
So again, I mean, Hobo, you were going somewhere with that, but again, the question for those just joining us or just tuning in is you know, Illmatic is the classic, but why has it was written sold more records than Illmatic?
Maybe people had more papers back then when it came out.
Respect, you could do it right now. So look. Currently, I looked up a couple of numbers. I tried to certify them as much as possible. It's not that easy to get certified kind of numbers unless you have real access to that kind of shit, which Scan and I used to have back in the day.
Right.
You don't have access to those kind of numbers anymore.
I don't have access to that numbers anymore.
From the information I was able to gather, the most current information I got on Illmatic, which was back in 2019, Illmatic is currently 2.5 times platinum. Okay? It was written as of 2016, which is the most current I could get, like sort of certified sort of information from like a reliable source online. Was at 3.5 million sold since 2016. Again, both albums. This is years ago. 2016, 2019 was the most recent, which was that they could have grown, but again, at the rate that it was written has grown in that number. I don't know why, you know, Illmatic would probably catch up to that number anytime soon, but the numbers grow. So, you know, we're talking about, again, the classic Illmatic has gone platinum, not to be mistaken, it has actually gone double platinum, you know, and still rising. But it took 7 years for it to go initially one time platinum. So we can't ignore that fact. And during those 7 years, it's not like it took 7 years for us to figure out that this was a fucking classic. Again, Illmatic was off the bat. If you were a hip hop aficionado, lucky enough to give a shit at that point to want to participate with Illmatic when it first came out, you were like, this didn't fucking disappoint.
Do you know about the mic information? Like I know Illmatic
got
got 5 mics.
Very good point, Jumbo. That was a big deal back then. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
True.
Again, added to this. And why? What's up? What was the industry not ready for him? Like I remember scanning myself and shout out DJ Sensor. We cut school one day during the album date of release to go get in line at Nobody Beats Quiz in the Village back in New York City, downtown, to get our copies of
Is that said copy? Is that actually said copy?
This is the copy. It's not autographed because when we got there, cops shut it down. Mad kids everywhere. They were not prepared for the amount of kids that showed up. I remember that shit. Like over 300 kids were there, and it was just like, you remember that Scan?
Yeah.
Tower Records, if I'm not mistaken.
Say it again?
I think it was at Tower Records.
No, Times Square. I mean, not Times Square, Union Square.
Well, around Union Square, like a little further. Like I said, like wasn't it Tower Records?
Say it again?
Wasn't it Tower Records? I remember.
Tower Records. Yeah, Tower Records. Tower Records.
Yeah.
Tower Records.
Tower Records downtown, near Union Square, basically down a little further down on Houston. I could be wrong. I don't remember the exact location, but no. I'm totally wrong. Forgive me. It wasn't Tower Records. It was Nobody Beats the Wiz. Nobody Beats the Wiz. That used to exist.
Wait, which one though?
The one that it used to be maybe like 14th, like you were saying, maybe like Union Square, but it was definitely.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's why I said that. Yeah.
They weren't ready. Yeah, it probably wasn't around there. They wasn't ready for the amount of kids that showed up, and we was like, young little high school kids with our records, like we already bought our records at the record store back in Queens.
You know what, too, and I'll touch on something, and it's kind of something to what B Sharp says. It was made to grab record sales. Hold on, it was made to grab record sales. Ooh. And it had a bigger budget. So I say that to say, going back to what I keep reiterating is that by the time 96, 97, 98 hit, hip hop was starting to get way more money at the time.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think also that had something to do with it as well, is because now that you're putting money into the It Was Written album, you're putting money into it, you're reaching more people, reaching more places with the way I think Illmatic, I think in all honesty, as the more we're talking about it and I'm looking back at it, it just came out to just be, this is the next Rakim, he's from New York, and that's it. It wasn't really, I don't think they had a vision to understand that he would really be what it is or what he is today in that sense of it. I don't think they had an idea of it. So therefore, by the time the second album came around, as Jules, you and I know, oh, okay, we saw how this did, even though it didn't do well, but now, okay, we could throw a little bit more coins towards it. You know what I'm saying? And then it's probably consistent the reason why then after, even though these other albums weren't good, there was just still being money marketed towards it. You know what I mean? Whereas Illmatic, there was no real master budget or plan behind it.
So here's the thing then. So I would say this. So do you think that the timing was off with that first album when it came out? So do you think if that would have came out a year later or a year and a half later, do you think it would have done its numbers then as opposed to when it came out?
Subjective. There's no right or wrong.
He was the domino. He was the domino.
Yeah,
he was.
Was like the okay, like again, like you can create a masterpiece doing like, let's just call it, street hip hop versus like people were trying to dance, like people were trying to find the formula. People were doing like Joe Public shit. You got to live and learn.
Right.
Joe Public. Wow.
We're trying anything. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about, like,
all right. So we run out of time, so let's close it up.
And then like here comes this kid, like, yo, fuck all that. Chip too. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And people were like, oh shit, this little motherfucker, right? And it was like, yep.
Right.
Everybody could cohesively agree, like, yeah.
Yeah, closing vote.
You like
closing
him?
vote.
You like him?
Right.
Like, I get, like, nobody was doing that. Nobody. You were
Right.
What were you gonna say, Breeze?
No, well, quickly, because the thing that I say that because I had a conversation a while ago about when Coogee Rap came out. Because Coogee Rap, they I think it was my cousin said this, if he would have came out a little bit after he first originally came out, he would have made it more of an impact than he did. Because Coogee Rap is a slept on artist, and I don't really think he got a lot of his flowers for putting out his stuff, because I think his timing wasn't.
We can discuss that another time. I think I think all of it is subjective. I think all of it is subjective because when it's your time, bro, and that's how life works.
Yeah, depending on what we look on.
Yeah, so it's subjective.
I agree, but
it's subjective. That's
subjective, right? But that's another topic.
Yeah,
for sure.
Just one last point. B Sharp made a good point that It Was Written was like came out during that time when they was really pushing the Columbia House 8 CDs for a penny. So probably contributed a lot.
That's a good point.
That's a really good point. That helped a lot.
Columbia House.
Yeah, I remember that.
You can't see it, but
Columbia. Yes.
Yeah, good point there. Who was that? Who said that?
The homie B Sharp.
B Sharp, good point. Very good point. All the fucking sales are valid. All those sounds. I mean, well, they weren't SoundScan at the time, but all those sales are definitely valid. Listen, guys, we're getting ready to wrap it up. Again, we do this every Monday night, starting at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Your boys here at Eats, Beats, and Rhymes. Your man, Yo Jules DJ, another episode of Who Do You Got? We're talking about the legendary battle that we put together of Nas's Illmatic versus It Was Written. It looks like, you know, we kind of coming to a end of the road here. I usually have questions, topics that we kind of go through. Tonight it was a difficult one because they're both such amazing fucking albums, right? So going through, let's just call it our scorecard, if you will, because there are no real questions that were being really kind of asked except for this last one. And in this last one, it was more of a mind fuck pause, if you will. There's no right answer of why did It Was Written sell more records than Illmatic, right? To put a score on. So I want to give it up to the fans that we got in the room. My man B Sharp. You know, we got anybody else in the chat room that we need to know about, Hobo?
My man Mulo in the chat room. Shout out to him.
Let's give them an official count on the vote. Guys, we're talking about Illmatic. We're talking about It Was Written. People in the chat room, chime in. Who do you got? And let's see if you can help tally up the score tonight to see who gets the win tonight.
They both said Illmatic earlier in the song.
Oh, I thought you meant right now. I was like, damn. Even after all that discussion, I was gonna say, like, even after all that break.
They both said Illmatic, and and actually when I did the poll on IG, it was like 88% Illmatic too. So
see,
and you know what? Listen, I dig it. I dig it. I really do. It's just like I said. I think the argument holds a little weight when I first.
Argument holds weight. It holds weight.
Yeah. See,
like it really, really does. I think, by the way, that this kind of summarizes that Illmatic is the winner tonight, guys. Just give it up for Nas. Period.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It ain't hard to tell.
Yeah.
Peace to the Half Moon Caesars.
Again, it's a valid argument. I think it was written as a fucking dope piece of fucking work.
Yes.
For those who may not know about it, I highly advise you to check it out. I definitely think you should do it in order. If you don't know either project, try Illmatic, which is a godsend, and then try It Was Written, which is, you know, a Bible scribe. So you win either way. But to my fellows and my comrades, again, Eats, Beats, and Rhyme Soldiers, want to say thanks again. Again, Eats, Beats, and Rhymes every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Another episode of Who Do You Got coming to you next week. Stay tuned for the YouTube channel to drop soon. We got some stuff coming. We're in the works. You know, we just trying to keep it rolling over here. Anybody
keeping it moving.
We're just giving anybody in the chat room got anything they want to say. Shout out to everybody in the chat room, by the way. You know, who was that? B Sharp.
Represent.
Well, I'm saying I'm about to butcher this name. What's the other guy's name? I'm about to butcher.
Mulo.
I was about to butcher that. So thanks for the heads up. Again, thanks for everybody that tunes in. Follow us everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, blah 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 blah. We here. We do it every fucking week. Again, thanks very much, everybody tuning in. Illmatic goes down in the books once again. We'll do this again every one day. Guys, anything you guys want to check out with?
One love.
One love. Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night.
Peace.
New York State of Mind.
Eats, Beats, and Rhymes.